All right, good morning, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the BluIP Q3 Agent and Partner webinar. Very excited to have we have one of our good partners, John Grote from Frontier and Peplink with us today. I believe several of you have joined in on these webinars before, but in case, welcome to the ones that haven't joined in as well before. We do really encourage questions throughout this. Just because we want to maintain a good dialogue. The way to ask questions is through the chat message. We may or may not answer questions directly on the call. We may wait to some towards the end, or we may, if it's a more detailed question, we may follow up separately via email post the webinar, but we definitely encourage dialogue. And as people have joined in before, do know that there are some prizes out there for active participants, including some actual Peplink gear that John is willing to raffle off, and we also have a couple of BluIP items as well to raffle off for active participants. And we will have the BluIP team at the discretion use that in case there's too many questions coming in, but we certainly encourage questions. I'm going to have Eric do the introduction of the Peplink update today. Eric, I'll hand it off to you.
Hey guys, good morning and good afternoon for some. And thank you again for joining us today. It's been a while since we've hosted a Frontier Peplink webinar. So we do have John Grote, and John is our partner development manager. He's an awesome dude to work with. And we have not too many slides. We only have about 16 slides. So what we want to do for this one is we do want to do some simple demos, and we want some active participation. So we're not going to bore you to death on PowerPoint slides. So why don't I kick it off with you, John? Maybe you can explain the role between Frontier US and Peplink, as they are two separate and distinct companies.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the intro, and thanks for having me be a part of this. It's been a great relationship that we've built over the past 7 years, I believe we're working on now. Frontier, we're the only exclusive Peplink distributor, Peplink exclusive, however you want to look at it. So our focus is 100% on the Peplink product line, from the mobility side to the enterprise side and everything in between. We've been the distributor here in the US for going on 10 years now. Within those 10 years, we've also branched out to the UK and the EU market. So we have a distribution center in the Netherlands, and then we're also working directly with Peplink in the Europe markets with their Lithuania branch. So we're helping with marketing, market research, all that kind of stuff relating to connectivity requirements that fits the mold of what Peplink is really, really good at. To get into the first slide, but SDWAN, that's a hot saying right now. Peplink is kind of the leader in SDWAN and has been for quite some time. We've been doing SDWAN before there was a term called SDWAN. So a lot of people think that we're an SDWAN company. We are, but we're so much more as that as well. Connectivity is kind of where we feel that we are masters at. From wireless connectivity, whether it be like on the mobile side of things, the remote workforce, which has become popular over the last couple of years for obvious reasons, to enterprise connectivity, any kind of connectivity, any kind of internet source you can imagine, Peplink can take that connection and use it in numerous ways, whether it be on a load balancing kind of approach, bonding aspect, traffic shaping, traffic steering, true SD-WAN capabilities, both on a physical device and virtual machines as well through our Fusion Hub offerings. We can do the next slide, I think. Just to get into some of the new products is kind of what I'm going to cover today. This is our flagship single modem BR1 Mini. This is the newest hardware revision. It's called the Hardware Rev 3. What's changed since the last one is going to be kind of the internal components of it. So it can do a lot more throughput, from 150 up to 300 now on this new one. That's 300 meg of throughput. So out of the box, this device is set up to be a cellular modem gateway. With a license, you can activate that WAN port on there. It'll also activate Wi-Fi as a WAN to make it a true failover device. So if this is something that you just want to put into a vehicle for internet on the road, or work from Rome, a lot of people are calling it, you don't need any kind of license, because the cellular modem on the back is active and ready to go. Slip a SIM card in there, and you are pretty much a plug and play. You have a plug and play device. There are 2 slots on the back for carrier diversity. These are certified on all 4 major carriers, so AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, and US Cellular. The new ones are 4 FF SIM cards, so it's the nano size, in case you're wondering. All this can be found on data sheets as well. These have Wi-Fi 5 built into them, so those 2 center antennas you see on the back, those are going to be your cellular antennas, and then the 2 outer ones are going to be your Wi-Fi antennas. A lot of people add external antennas when these are deployed into brick and mortar type facilities, because if these are going to be a cellular failover for your main router, you're going to obviously want to get an external antenna to the outside of the building for better signal. But this one, they start with Cat 4 modems. There's also a Cat 7 model available, and they start at $349 and go up to $479. So this is probably the most popular, outside of that BR1 Mini, this is probably the most popular product that Peplink has right now. It's called the Balance 20X. You're going to see a lot of Peplink products with X in the name. The X stands for expansion or expandable. So within this device, out of the box, there is a Cat 4 cellular modem or a Cat 7 cellular modem, depends on what model you buy. There's a single Ethernet WAN, and then you have 4, I believe there's 4 Ethernet LAN ports on there as well. That USB port you're seeing right there can be a WAN port as well. So there is USB to Ethernet WAN ports, adapters available. So that would give you 2 Ethernet WANs with cellular backup. And this has built-in Wi-Fi as well. It's 11AC Wave 2 Wi-Fi. And then on top of that, where the expandable, or the X comes into play, there on the bottom of the device, you can actually insert a second LTE or even 5G modem in there. So when all is said and done, you can have a dual Ethernet WAN and a dual cellular router all in one box for well under that $1,000 mark, which is a leader in the market. This one's really a small business, a work from home type device that's very capable of today's bandwidth needs. The router throughput capacity on this is 900 meg throughput. I think it's up to 1 through 50 recommended users on it. So it really opens up this product to check off a lot of boxes for a lot of different size companies or deployments. The SDX Pro is truly a build to suit your needs type device. It's very expansion capable. Those 2 slots on the right that you see with the screws, those are expandable modules. So out of the box is what you get, is what you see right there. 2 SFP ports, 2 WAN ports, 2 USB ports, management console ports, everything that an enterprise class company would have and need. And then within those slots there, you can add up to 16 PoE capable Ethernets that can be LAN or WAN. So if you think about the use cases on this, this is truly a thousands of employees or thousands of guests type router that you would need. So we see these put into hotels. We see them put into high-end maritime solutions, so yachts and things like that. Cruise ships are using these, shipping vessels, all sorts of stuff where you need a lot of internet connections, either because of user load, or when you're out at sea, you need a lot of different kinds of internet connections. So you need Wi-Fi as WAN, you need cellular as WAN, multiple cellular as WAN, and then also VSAT. You know, when you're too far offshore, VSAT's your only solution out there, whether that be traditional dome satellite or Starlink maritime or whatever they call it. I think it's that. But this can truly be an all-in-one device built for enterprise type connectivity needs. And then here's another one that is more built kind of ready to go. Okay, so the 3 in the 380X means there's 3 Ethernet WANs, and then same with the 580X, there's 5 Ethernet WANs. The expansion slot on the right is either for more LAN ports or cellular on up to 5 from LTE Cat6 on up to 5G modem as well. So this one is rack mountable, great for enterprise, kind of medium to large type business deployments. The USB port can be accessed for external USB modems if the customer has those already. They're not recommended just because they seem to either have a loose connection or sometimes people walk off with them. So that expansion module there is for sturdy, secure internet cellular connectivity. And then Gartner has been a huge focus of Peplink's leadership. We were first put onto the Gartner, or I should say we first made the Gartner report, I believe in gosh, I should have looked at this. I think it was 2018. I could be wrong. But we were way down in the bottom left-hand corner. We just made the Gartner report back then. Gartner's really good at feedback on what a manufacturer needs to truly get to that center of the report, of the quadrant. So since then, Peplink's made a lot of strides. We are in a lot more industries, verticals, whatever you want to call them, than we were back then. Cellular is huge right now because of remote workers. 5G is finally here. It took forever, it felt like, to get 5G into the country, but it's finally a legitimate, capable network to be using in enterprise type deployments. So that's, again, that is why Peplink is focusing so hard on these expansion module type routers. This is a good thing and a bad thing where we need our partners' help to truly get more centered up towards the HPE location. That's kind of where Peplink is wanting to go to. So with all of your guys' help, feedback on deployments, shortcomings that Peplink has, everything can be funneled up the channel through BluIP. They'll send it to me, and I'll get that information to Peplink. We truly want to get over towards that center to get more recognized, to be recognized more. So it's a team effort, and we look forward to helping you guys with that. That's all I have right now. I'm happy to either wait for questions or we can take some right now. And this is just, I guess this was my wrap up here. You know, why us, why Peplink versus the other guys? There's a lot of things Peplink can do as far as the bonding, hot failover, single upload of many devices for configurations and things like that. Zero touch configuration of VPNs is kind of how Peplink says it. Everything is done in Control 2 in a single pane of glass. So this is really built for enterprise type management through different locations, whether that be, or different groups, whether that be location geographically, admin rights, things like that. You can really get granular with the In-Control 2. Every device comes with it, and it's all part of Peplink's kind of all-in-one solution for enterprises.
Awesome. Thank you, John.
Yeah, John, the one question that came in, if I may, Gerald asked if the 20X requires technical skills to install. I can kind of answer part of it if you want, or...
Yeah, I would say no, but you have firsthand experience with that specific device, so if you wanted to take it, go right ahead.
Yeah, Gerald, I actually got to test a 20X device, and besides looking up online what the default username and password was, I figured it out to get it configured and actually share that in a little bit. But it doesn't require deep technical skills to install. Of course, the more customization you want to do on a device, it's good to have some of the Peplink training involved.
Awesome.
Eric, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Lasse. Thank you, John. So before I go into my portion, we're going to talk about SD-WAN. Somebody did ask about Peplink certification. So everything that you see here in our slides, you can all access through peplink.com. But if you guys are interested in actually taking the Peplink Certified Sales Specialist exam, just go to training.peplink.com. Of course, we are assuming, or they are assuming, that you have created a Peplink account with them. And then it's basically going to your, just go to enter course. There's the examination, all the information that you're going to need. There's all the training materials in the form of videos, okay? And I've actually taken the training videos for the first 3 modules, and they're excellent. They're very, very concise. They're not 2-hour-long videos. I think they decided to cut them out in 25, 30-minute segments as opposed to an hour and a half. So you can definitely digest all of the information. The information is very clear. They have a lot of moving animation to help explain the concept. And then they also follow it up with the actual slides that they use, during the actual training. So definitely go into training.peplink.com. First, assuming you guys have an account. So go ahead and create your account so you can get more educated in all the boxes. And as John just told you, so one of the cool things that they first teach you in Peplink is how to read the part numbers. So for example, you saw that the balance 380. So now you know that the 3 stands for the number of WAN ports. And when you hear something like the BR1, the BR stands for either business ready or business rugged. I've heard them being called both ways. So there's definitely a science that they didn't just jumble in a lot of words. So the first thing that they're going to teach you in Peplink is how to read off the different part numbers, so that when you see a product, you don't have to ask, well, how many ports does this one have? It'll tell you. So when you see something that says Pro means that it's got a built-in smart switch in there already, right? So you don't have to remember, okay, so which one of these come with a 4-port or an 8-port switch? Just look for the one that says Pro. So they'll teach you the basics, and then they'll go into really finite details on it, okay? So that's the first thing. All right. So now let's talk about SD-WAN. Now, SD-WAN didn't really, as John mentioned before, they have been doing SD-WAN long before SD-WAN was actually cool. They just didn't call it SD-WAN back then. I'm not really sure who coined the term SD-WAN, but back in 2014, when we first started hearing about this, I bet you if you ask 10 people what is SD-WAN, they'll give you 10 different answers, right? And so we actually, so Gartner, in order to eliminate this confusion, back in 2015, Gartner actually defined, or not defined, but they gave a standard of what it means to be SD-WAN. And so Gartner basically says you can consider your solution SD-WAN if they can provide these 4 things. So number 1, so your SD-WAN solution must provide a lightweight replacement for traditional WAN routers and are agnostic to whatever media that the customer wants to use, whether it be LTE, whether it be MPLS, whether it be 5G, 4G, right? It's got to be agnostic. So that's the first one. So what's the problem with the classic, legacy routers? Well, the problem with them was they were very rigid, right? It was one interface, and if you didn't have the right interface, then you'd have to go get another router to support that kind of interface. So number two, your SD-WAN solution has to allow for load sharing of traffic across multiple WAN connections. And as John has mentioned to you before, they've already been doing that long before Gartner even came up with these standards. Number three, your SD-WAN solution must dramatically simplify the complexity associated with management, configuration, and orchestration of WANs. So basically, as somebody just said, that you have to be a technical person to actually configure this. And Lasse does not work in our support team, and he was able to configure it just fine, right? Number four, your SD-WAN solution must provide secure VPNs and have the ability to integrate additional network services and offload internet destined traffic closer to the edge of the network. Again, Peplink has been doing this long before this. Okay, so that's what Gartner basically described back in 2015. 2014 is when SD-WAN started heading into the marketplace. By 2015, everybody was confused because everybody was saying, oh, we're SD-WAN, we're SD-WAN. And so Gartner basically said, okay, well, so here's the standard. All right. And I just want to point out, though, you don't have to implement all of these things to call yourself an SD-WAN solution provider. You just have to be capable of it. All right. Next slide. So now you're wondering, okay, so we know what Gartner says what SD-WAN is. So how does Peplink do SD-WAN, right? So Peplink was able to more than satisfy all of Gartner's requirements in these four quadrants, right? So the first one is in WAN virtualization. Right, so Peplink routers enable you to build one logical WAN connection using multiple technologies, right? So WAN virtualization, by the way, is it's just the general name for the technology, but Peplink calls it speed fusion. And we're going to talk about speed fusion in more detail in another slide, right? Remember, Gartner said that it's got to be centrally managed. So John did mention that we have a product called InControl. Well, not we. Peplink has a product called InControl 2, and it is their single pane of glass. And we'll talk about that in a second. It's got to support a secure VPN. So using Speed Fusion VPN technology, branch offices gain secure local network access to cloud resources. And lastly, it's got to be, intelligently manage, right? So Peplink routers actively monitor WAN quality and makes intelligent decisions, to direct application traffic flow. So I asked Peplink, so in one sentence, and I know you guys are still confused if you guys have never heard of SD-WAN. So in your own words, what do you think SD-WAN is, and just in layman terms? And they basically told me that, SD-WAN is the ability without user interaction to fluidly start moving traffic from one source to another, right? So that's the whole concept of SD-WAN. So we want to simplify networking and remove the hands-on process of when a connection goes down. Back in the old days, you had to remove Ethernet ports and plug them into another interface, so that's what we're trying to resolve. Okay, so now we'll go deeper into each of these technologies. So let's start with WAN virtualization. So remember, Gartner said your SD-WAN solution must provide a lightweight replacement for traditional WAN routers. So the speed fusion is not one technology, right? Speed fusion is actually a family of three families. I actually have another slide specifically for speed fusion, but before we go into that cool slide, so speed fusion is the trinity of hot failover, bonding, and WAN smoothing. Okay, so again, speed fusion is Peplink's answer to WAN virtualization, in that they offer hot failover, bonding, and WAN smoothing. All right, so here's a little cool diagram on how speed fusion works. So we did say the first one is bonding. So bonding, what we do is we take multiple low-cost WAN connections, right? I'm talking residential grade WAN connections to form one strong pipe, for total throughput. So how can a residential grade DSL become 5.9? By using bonding, right? So we take 4 or 5 or however many interfaces of cheap solutions, and we can turn them into an enterprise grade solution. And now we have hot failover. So in hot failover, there's two types. There's basic failover, and then there's hot failover, right? In basic, what it does is it transfers the session to another connection, but it does not prevent the session from breaking if one WAN connection fails. And of course, this will result in an interruption. And you could definitely see this when you guys are on, a Teams meeting, a Zoom meeting, or whatever meeting you guys are using, and somebody loses, connectivity, for even 1 second. You guys have to remember that, packets travel down the pipe at near the speed of light. So a 1 second drop, right, is like an eternity, for packet life, right? So that's why you want hot failover. And then we have the concept of WAN smoothing. So WAN smoothing, what it does in general is it duplicates the packets and it sends it out on multiple connections. And then the far end just uses the first packet that it receives, and it resembles it. So it actually does a little bit more for bandwidth. However, with WAN smoothing, this is what you need when you're doing presentations like this, right? When you're doing live streaming, when you're doing videos. When you're sending a chat message in Teams or in WebEx or in any other type of platform, 1 second delay, you're not going to notice it. You're just going to assume that the other person is still typing, right? But you sure definitely notice it when they're sharing their video and when they're in the middle of a thought, right? And they're trying to explain to you something, and all of a sudden it drops for 1 or 2 seconds, right? So that's the concept of smoothing, right? So it maintains sessions jitter-free, and it utilizes intelligent algorithms to detect packet loss and to immediately replace the lost packets. And the key here is it's sending the packets, it's duplicating the packets through multiple interfaces. So it doesn't care which one gets there first, as long as it gets there. That's the whole concept of WAN smoothing. So the packets always get there, even if one of the interfaces drop, right? So that's what Speed Fusion is. It is the trinity between bandwidth bonding, hot failover, and WAN smoothing. Okay. All right. So in our next slide, centrally managed. Actually, before we go into centrally managed, let me just go back one slide. At BluIP, we tell everybody that we definitely eat our own dog food, right? So if we're going to push Peplink, then we certainly have to use Peplink. So Lasse actually uses Peplink on a daily basis. And Lasse, if you wouldn't mind stealing my screen and maybe showing them, what you see when I talk about Speed Fusion.
Yeah, absolutely. Originally, that was actually a couple of weeks ago. Eric and I were talking regarding Peplink, and I was like, well, actually, let me show you a couple of things. And I think, Gerald, you asked a question earlier if the 20X required any technical expertise. So I am actually inviting you all into my house right now and sharing my Peplink setup. I do have a little bit of a unique situation where I have 2 different ISPs, just given that I don't live in a city. I am out in the mountains. So I am currently showcasing a balanced 20X here, and you can see that there are 2 different ISPs I leverage. So I have Starlink, and I have a fixed wireless provider called AlignTech. I won't go into details, but they each carry pros and cons. So I have to leverage 2 of these. Prior to Peplink, my only backup was to physically move a cable over. That was how I would do a proper failover beforehand. Versus now, these are actually bonded together. So I choose what traffic needs to go over the SpeedFusion link versus which one should just kind of fail over. And I swear I did not set this up, but it is kind of perfect sample here. If you see my graph that I got going, this is the aggregate transfer between the two different connections. And then it also breaks it out in between Starlink and AlignTech. And you see right now it is duplicating traffic. So when I'm speaking to you right now, it actually takes a package, sends it out both AlignTech and Starlink. And then on the other end, it gets assembled. If one of these connections should disconnect, it's fine because the other one is actually picking it up. You could see right here about 3 minutes ago, you see there's a little drop on my Starlink connection because my Starlink connection actually dropped. If I go in and show my event log, you would see here I'm on mountain time. So you would see that my Starlink actually went off for about 15 seconds. I lost Starlink connectivity, yet I was able to remain on this call. What I'll also show, and keep in mind we are doing this live here, is as I'm talking, I'm actually going to kill my Starlink connection on the fly. So I'm going to disconnect this, meaning all traffic should just fail over to my other connection. To prove this, I hope no one really heard any major jitter or anything, and I also have a continuous ping running to Google, and that did not take a hit during that break off in service. And you can see here, my Starlink is currently disconnected. And the traffic that goes out over Starlink has come to a halt, yet everything is going out over this other connection called AlignTech. I'm going to reconnect my Starlink here. Again, this is a live demo. I'm literally talking to you on this as I'm failing this over. And it is now reestablishing the Starlink connection. While I am in here, does anyone have any questions on this? Again, I am not the deep technical expert. I literally took 0 minutes of Peplink education. I did go online to find the default username and password, but everything else I kind of figured out on my own. I do intend to learn more about this. It is a really, really, really neat product. And that is why BluIP, we do leverage this for all our installations. We just feel like that the product is not being used to its full capability, which is why we really want to educate all of you as our agents and partners that, hey, BluIP is installing this really cool product. You can actually do a lot more with it.
Awesome.
I'll showcase this one in there too, Eric, if it's okay. You can see here's the traffic that I choose to go out over SpeedFusion Connect, which is really, I've limited just to be Skype for Business and Teams, WebEx, and Zoom. Meaning, if I'm going to be streaming Netflix and my internet connection drops for a few seconds, it's fine. It's buffered. It will switch over eventually to one of the other connections as well, but there may be a little bit more of a drop. Versus if I'm having a Teams call with 30+ people at a webinar for my company, I really don't want that to drop. I want that to go out over SpeedFusion Connect. So I've forced all Skype for Business and Microsoft Teams traffic to go out over SpeedFusion. All right.
That's
I don't know
awesome.
if anyone
Lasse.
had any questions. If not, I'm going to shift over to you, Eric, here.
All right. Thank you, Lasse. I'm going to steal your screen again in a second.
And
I should have. Second.
Deb has a good question that we might parking lot to the end.
Okay. All right. Can everybody see my screen again?
Yes.
All right. So we left off with centrally managed. And again, Gartner did say that your SD-WAN solution must dramatically simplify the complexity associated with management. Unless you guys have ever programmed using the line method of Cisco router, then you'll truly appreciate what this means. So in the Peplink world, they have the concept of In Control 2. So In Control 2 is their cloud-based portal to manage all of your devices from a single pane of glass. And you guys have all heard us say how cool a single pane of glass is. So with In Control 2, right, you can do things such as zero-touch configuration options. You can do vault configuration, set all your device IP options. You can do your firewall settings. You can set your outbound policies, your Wi-Fi options. You can even configure your SD-WAN deployment from the cloud. Right? You can even do like comprehensive GPS management, because a lot of PepWaves devices, have GPS capability. So you can do some real-time playback. You can even tell the road conditions, the cell coverage. There's so much you can do with InControl 2, all visually, right? Without having to type in any kind of command line interface, back in the legacy world. All right. Secure VPNs. So Gartner did say that your solution must provide secure VPNs and have the ability to integrate additional network services. So using PepVPN and SpeedFusion, so branch offices gain secure local network access to cloud resources. So what I'm trying to show in this picture here is, just because you can implement secure VPN, it doesn't mean that you have to do all or nothing. If you want to do secure VPN to maybe just this interface, maybe going from a home office to BluIP, or a home office to another enterprise building, maybe you can secure that with secure VPN. But if you're going to do some, channel surfing, web surfing, then, that probably doesn't need, secure VPN, right? So again, just because you don't implement secure VPN, that does not make your solution not an SD-WAN, right? So you don't have to implement all 4 of them. It just has to be capable of them. And then lastly, we have intelligent traffic management, right? So second, I lost my slide. So with intelligent traffic, so it actively monitors WAN quality and makes intelligent decisions to direct application traffic flow. So I don't know if you guys saw this in Lasse's little demonstration, but there's actually, I think Lasse, there was like 8 different algorithms that you can choose from, for network packet decision making. So it's a very, very, very intelligent system. So you can set your outbound policy. You can manage what route different packets take. Lasse was just saying that I want my Netflix to go out this interface. I want this kind of traffic to go out this interface. For example, for video conferencing, you can tell it to use your fastest route always, right? And then for general web surfing, you can tell it to use a different route, right? So that way your voice and video doesn't have to compete with it. You can configure it that if your strongest interface goes down, like maybe your fiber goes down, that it will intelligent know which one is the next best interface, and that's the one that I should use, right? So it's not just traffic management, it's intelligent traffic management, right? The whole point here is if something goes down, you shouldn't have to be running to your closets, right, to be able to unplug switches, unplug Ethernet ports and cables, so that way you'll be back in business again, right? It was what we mentioned before, it was to fluidly move, right, packets from one source to another without human intervention. Okay. All right. So I know you guys, I've heard a lot. BluIP, we released these bundles, almost 2 years ago, and at the time, what we did was we basically bundled up, small boxes. And by the way, this is not the complete list. There's a ton of lists. So what I would suggest is, if you guys are interested in what we offer as far as SD-WAN and disaster recovery solutions, that you guys contact your BluIP salesperson. But I just wanted to give you an example, right? So if all you want is a bundled solution, I just want the Max BR1 Mini, and with a SIM card already on it, we've got that. If there is a Peplink router that you don't see on this list, but you saw it in their website, remember, so we are a Peplink Telecom certified partner, which means that not only do all of our salespeople have the Peplink knowledge, because they all have to take the PCSS exam, right? But also our support team also had to take the engineering portion of the exam. We needed at least 2 people in sales. We decided, you know what, everyone's going to take it. So every single one of our salespeople are PCSS certified, and we have at least 2, I think maybe 3 or 4 in our support team that has passed the PCE exam. So we're definitely familiar with the boxes, and of course we have John Grote to help us in case we need help. But if there's a box that's not on this list and you guys are interested in just purchasing that box separately, or you want to purchase that box with maybe an AT&T service, for disaster recovery, or you want to purchase that box with a Verizon service with disaster recovery, just let us know and we will custom make it for you, right? Because Peplink offers so many devices, right? So we didn't want to create this 1,000-row matrix of every possible combination, right? So, but I'm just, showing you guys what we can do with it. So if you guys want to buy the box separately, or if you guys want to buy the box, with the service already included, we'll customize it for you. We'll create a new part number if it doesn't already exist. And by the way, those new products that you saw, that John was showing off, including the Balance 20, I mean, these are, brand new boxes like the Balance 20X, the SDX Pro, the Balance 380X and the 580X. These are not in our system yet, but as soon as we get one request for it, it's not a problem. We have the pricing for it, and we can definitely come up with a solution for you guys. Okay. All right. So that reaches the end of my slides. Lasse, John, are there any other questions or any other notes that we want to cover?
There's one that I may want to build a little bit on, which was there was a we leverage these devices in very high demanding locations. So within the BluIP front, we leverage Peplink in hospitals, hotels, and oil rigs out in the middle of the ocean, just from the BluIP side. And obviously, Peplink has a pretty wide range of customers as well. So just want to emphasize that we absolutely leverage these in diverse environments, and some which literally means life or death situations where we have a reliance on Peplink devices.
That's right. Good point, Awesome.
Also, Deb Phillips asked a question. I think, John, you probably addressed it, but maybe worthwhile just going into a little bit more details verbally. Deb asked, how would this product interface with a hotel's firewall and other routers for primary and secondary data services? John, I know you kind of respond about the drop-in mode, but you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, that's obviously a common setup for enterprise deployment. So drop-in mode pretty much sits in between the firewall and the ISP. It's kind of a transparent bridge. So, and I'm not the technical person, so the drop-in mode really is suited for when they don't want to get rid of a firewall or do a whole bunch of new configuration in their firewall. This is a simple drop-in mode is how Peplink's deployment strategy works on that. If there's ever any questions or anything like that, BluIP and Frontier can work together on that.
Awesome.
And then I just wanted to kind of piggyback on what you were saying about the different verticals that Peplink can fit into. Obviously, it's in the news right now with the hurricane in Florida. There are carriers, cellular carriers, AT&T and Verizon. They both have their emergency network. Verizon Frontline and AT&T FirstNet. Peplink, all the Peplink mobile routers can be found on peplink.com that are FirstNet and Verizon Frontline certified. So we can go into these areas, and a first responder can be connected to that FirstNet private network when they're going there for first responder responsibilities, and using the Peplink products can get them connected to the internet for communications, medical, what am I thinking of? I'm sorry, I'm drawing a blank. For like paramedics and things like that, when they're bringing patients to a hospital, they can actually have real-time conversations, both audio and visual, with the hospital where they're taking that patient to. So FirstNet and Frontline are huge capabilities of the Peplink routers.
Yeah, John, this is Joe Hernandez. Just to add to that,
Good,
we do have ambulatory departments and ER departments on these devices in hospitals today.
Beautiful.
Yeah, and we also have BluIP has utility customers as well that are actually part of FirstNet as well.
Yep.
I'm not going to mention the name, but we have one specific customer that has 20 plus locations where we BluIP installed Peplink devices, and then the customer acquired FirstNet SIMs, so they are on FirstNet from a data plan, ensuring optimal uptime for this utility company that's providing electricity and heating and cooling.
Awesome. Those are the best stories to hear about for sure.
Any other questions from anyone regarding Peplink or BluIP?
So maybe Lasse, this is a good time to mention about the prizes.
Yeah, so appreciate everyone reaching out. We got a couple of people that have reached out either through the chat or directly, and we'll engage with you directly. Frontier and Peplink has been very kind to donate a AP1AX Lite device that will be raffled off, and we also have some other BluIP and Peplink gear as well. And I'll reach out directly to the people that have participated in the conversation. And of course, we really appreciate everyone's feedback afterwards as well. So feel free to reach out directly to your salesperson or reach out directly to me. My email is lasse@bluip.com. Always happy to hear feedback. We really need to make sure these webinars are targeted towards our agents and partners, so you understand what we're working on and maybe products that will benefit some of your customers. We really need to make sure we tailor the messaging correctly. And again, we do intend to have a Q4 webinar. We're going to see how we'll fit into the December schedule with the holidays. We may try to do it a little bit earlier, and look out for an invite for that meeting, of course.
And if somebody
else?
If somebody did miss this presentation, we did record the entire presentation, and we can send you guys the link for the presentation along with the slides. So if any of your colleagues have missed it, just forward them the link. I think that's it, Lasse. So again, guys, thank you so much for spending your Thursday with us. I know everybody here is busy, and we did go a little bit over, and I'm really happy that you guys stayed with us till the end. So thank you again. Have a great rest of your day and your week. We'll see you again in the next webinar. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eric.
Bye now.